Is Jordan Kyrou's public meltdown in St. Louis about to become Montreal's golden opportunity to land the elite top six winger they've been desperately missing? Back in July, Geoff Gorton made a statement that most people dismissed as typical general manager speak. "We have enough in the well to make another trade," he said casually, almost like he was discussing the weather. But here we are in December 2025, and those words are starting to sound less like empty rhetoric and more like a carefully calculated warning. The Montreal Canadiens have been stockpiling assets for years. Young goaltenders, high-ceiling prospects, draft picks stacked like poker chips. Everyone assumed this collection was meant for some distant future rebuild. What if it was actually ammunition for right now? Jordan Kyrou is available. Not quietly available. Not maybe if the price is right available. Actually, genuinely, desperately available. The St. Louis Blues are drowning in 31st place. Their star forward has been healthy scratched. He's been booed in his own building. Reports suggest he's openly unhappy with the coaching staff. This isn't a player going through a rough patch. This is a relationship that's completely broken down. And when relationships break down in professional sports, opportunities emerge for teams smart enough and bold enough to capitalize. The latest development changes everything. Seattle, which had been considered Montreal's primary competition for Kyrou's services, has officially withdrawn from negotiations. The reason? The price is too high. The Kraken looked at what St. Louis was asking, calculated the cost versus the benefit, and walked away. That's massive news for Kent Hughes and Geoff Gorton. When your biggest rival exits the bidding war, the entire dynamic shifts. Suddenly, you're not competing against anyone. You're negotiating from a position of strength. The Blues need to move Kyrou. They need to reset their franchise. And now, Montreal is the only serious suitor with the assets to make it happen. Let's talk about why Jordan Kyrou is exactly what this team needs. The Canadiens have built an impressive offensive core. Nick Suzuki provides elite playmaking and leadership. Cole Caulfield delivers pure goal-scoring ability. But there's something missing. There's no chaos agent. No player who can take the puck at center ice, hit another gear, and be at the opponent's net before anyone realizes what happened. That's Jordan Kyrou. His speed isn't just NHL-level fast. It's elite fast. It's the kind of speed that breaks defensive structures and creates odd-man rushes out of nothing. Martin St. Louis has built his system around speed and transition. He wants his team pushing pace, attacking quickly, and overwhelming opponents with constant pressure. Kyrou fits that philosophy perfectly. Imagine him on a line with Suzuki, using his vision to spring Kyrou into space. Picture him on the power play, providing a one-timer threat from the opposite side of Caulfield. Think about what he could do with the kind of offensive support Montreal can provide, something he's never really had in St. Louis. The fit is almost too perfect. The production speaks for itself. Multiple 30-goal seasons. Multiple 70-point campaigns. He's done this on Blues teams that have been mediocre at best. He's carried offensive loads without adequate line mates. He's produced despite inconsistent deployment and questionable coaching decisions. Now imagine what those numbers could look like in Montreal's system, surrounded by better talent, playing for a coach who actually wants to unleash offensive creativity. The ceiling is enormous. And here's the part that makes this even more appealing. He's not a rental. Jordan Kyrou is signed through 2031 at $8.15 million per season. Some people will look at that number and see risk. Smart people will look at that number and see value. The salary cap is going up. What feels like a significant investment today will look like a bargain in 3 years. By 2028, when Montreal's young core is entering their prime, and the cap has jumped significantly. Kyrou's contract will be one of the better values in the league. That's not speculation. That's basic cap economics. The Hockey News analysis nails this point perfectly. Kyrou plays like an $8 million player because he is an $8 million player. But with the cap trajectory, that number becomes increasingly team-friendly. And if he's willing to waive his no-trade clause to escape the disaster in St. Louis, which all indications suggest he would, then Montreal becomes a logical destination. He gets to play in a real hockey market for a team on the rise, with a coach who will actually use him properly. It's a win for everyone except the Blues, and frankly, they've created this mess themselves. Now let's talk about the package Montreal can offer, because this is where Gorton's July comment becomes prophetic. The Canadiens have an embarrassment of riches in goaltending prospects. Jacob Fowler is untouchable, the clear future of the franchise. But Jakub Dobes? He's shown flashes of NHL capability. Caden Primo has experience and potential. The Blues are staring at a post-Jordan Binnington future with no clear plan. Montreal can offer them a young goaltender with legitimate starter upside. That's the centerpiece. But St. Louis isn't going to move Kyrou for just a goalie prospect. They want more. They want a high-ceiling forward prospect to help rebuild their offense. This is where Owen Beck enters the conversation. Beck is a talented center with good two-way instincts, but Montreal's organizational depth at center is ridiculous. Suzuki is locked in as the number one. Doc is the number two when healthy. Page is coming. Demidov is coming. Beck becomes expendable when you're trying to acquire a proven top six winger who can produce immediately. It's not that Beck isn't valuable. It's that Kyrou is more valuable, and Montreal can afford to trade from depth to make the money work. Montreal would need to include a roster player. Christian Dvorak makes sense as a salary matching piece. His contract expires soon, giving St. Louis flexibility. Josh Anderson could work if the Blues want size and are willing to bet on a change of scenery, reviving his career. Montreal might need to retain a small percentage of salary, but that's manageable. The financial gymnastics aren't complicated. The pieces fit if both sides want to make them fit. Seattle's withdrawal from negotiations is the game changer that makes this realistic. When the Kraken were involved, St. Louis could play the two teams against each other, driving up the price and demanding premium assets. Now that leverage is gone. The Blues have a disgruntled star on a long-term deal, sitting on a last-place team with no other serious suitors. That's not a strong negotiating position. Kent Hughes can offer a fair package without overpaying. Something like Dobes, Beck, and a second-round pick gets the conversation started. Maybe you add a mid-level prospect to close the deal, but you're not giving up a top-5 organizational asset. You're not including Lane Hudson or Ivan Demidov. You're trading from surplus to address need. The risk exists, of course. Kyrou's struggles this season are real. His defensive game has always been questionable. There's a reason St. Louis is willing to move him despite his obvious talent. But here's the counter-argument. How much of his struggle is the player, and how much is the environment? When you're playing for a losing team, with a coach you don't respect, in a system that doesn't suit your strengths, surrounded by inferior line mates, how well would anyone perform? Context matters. And the context in St. Louis is toxic. Montreal offers everything St. Louis doesn't. A young, exciting team on the rise. A coach who prioritizes offense and creativity. Elite playmakers to set him up. A passionate fan base that will embrace his skill. A fresh start in every sense of the phrase. Players often thrive after escaping bad situations. Look at what happened with Artemi Panarin after leaving Columbus. Look at Taylor Hall's resurgence after leaving New Jersey. Sometimes a change of scenery isn't just helpful, it's transformative. The Canadiens are currently in second place in the Atlantic Division with a 13-9-3 record. They're competitive now, but they're not complete. The goaltending issues are well documented. But even if they address that, they still need more offensive firepower in the top six. They need a player who can take over games, who can be the best player on the ice on any given night. Jordan Kyrou, at his best, is that player, and Montreal has the assets to get him without gutting the future. This is the exact scenario Gorton was talking about in July. The opportunity to use accumulated assets to make a significant upgrade, not a minor tweak, not a depth addition, a legitimate difference maker who changes the trajectory of the franchise. Kyrou isn't a perfect player, but he's a star-level talent available at a discount because of circumstances beyond his control. Those opportunities don't come around often. When they do, you have to be ready to act. St. Louis needs to move on. Kyrou needs a fresh start. Montreal needs a top six winger. Seattle has removed itself from the equation. All the pieces are in place for Kent Hughes to make the call that Geoff Gorton promised was coming. The question isn't whether Montreal should pursue Jordan Kyrou. The question is whether they have the courage to pull the trigger before someone else realizes what a bargain he represents. The window is open. The path is clear. The assets are ready. Now it's time to see if Montreal's management is as aggressive as their words suggest. Do you think the Canadiens should go all in on Kyrou, or is the risk too high given his struggles this season? What would you be willing to give up to land him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And smash that like button if you want to see Montreal make a bold move that could define this era of Canadiens hockey.